A very good morning to ladies and gentlemen. We will begin the next session. Our session will be have the title of International Pool of Expertise to support wide implementation of Paris Agreement. And without further ado, we will begin our first session. Therefore, I would like to invite Ibu Nur Masripatin to give the introduction. Ibu Nur Masripatin, the stage is yours.
Good morning, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the pre-launch of the Global Partnership on Building a Global Workforce to implement the Paris Agreement. As the global community increase their effort on nature-based solution to climate change since the adoption of the Paris Agreement, there is a clear need to enhance capacity and workforces in many developing countries. The Collaborative Capacity Lab, in short CCL, a new partnership or network of networks consisting of the Carbon Institute working at the global level, Rieckhoff from Africa region, KTA for Central and Latin America region, Rieckhoff TC for Asia region, and University of South Pacific for Pacific region is designed to ensure that countries have the workforces to implement, monitor, and report on nature-based solutions, hence strengthening the implementation of enhanced transparency framework under the Paris Agreement. The partnership aims to scale up the work already done in 6 countries: USA, China, Indonesia, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Cameroon. Thanks to the government of Germany and other donors for supporting our endeavors today. Through CCL, we will collaborate in achieving a common goal of ambitiously increasing the number of qualified developing country UNFCCC expert reviewers who have high level of understanding on the ETF, including IPCC guidelines, the capacity to guide, implement, and monitor nature-based climate solutions, prepare biennial transparency reports for the enhanced transparency framework, and serve as UNFCCC nominated expert. Through the CCL, we invest in highly trained climate leaders and create sustainable higher education of factories for solutions. We will focus on faculty mentoring, tailor advanced curriculum, accredit programs globally and nationally, conserve and restore ecosystem, and measure climate progress transparently. Distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, our session will start with a brief presentation on the history of advanced curriculum on nature-based solutions by Mr. John O'Niles, the director of the Carbon Institute. We will then have presentation on experience and lessons from advanced training in nature-based solution in China, Central America, and Indonesia. John will moderate the panel presentation. And then we will have a panel on expanding the partnership through a network of networks with panelists representing partners in CCL from Rieckhoff TC and USP. We miss Katie at this time. And Also from UNFCCC, Secretariat, and IPCC, and the global good representative. Then we will close our session with moderated discussion led by Ms. Margaret Leinen, the Scripps Institution of Oceanography. With that, I would like to invite John to give the short presentation and then guide the presentation on experience and lesson. Please, John, you have the floor.
Good morning, everybody. Happy COP25, right? COP25, Thursday. Everyone looks very bright-eyed. We're here today, as Noor said. Thank you, Noor, for the introduction. Because when you look at the landscape for climate change in 2019, as we go into the next decade, there's a very strong sense that we need to end negotiations and talking at conferences, and we need to raise ambition and get faster into action on the ground. To stay below 1.5 degrees, I think everyone in this room knows that every sector in every country needs to head towards zero net emissions by 2050. And for that type of change, we need to reimagine what education looks like and what the professional development of human capacity is geared toward. We need to be able to create a workforce that can get every sector to net zero very quickly. So we also have to ask ourselves, what haven't we tried already? We've done a Paris Agreement. It's a soft agreement. We have countries making pledges. We have pressure going on financial institutions. National countries are starting to implement their NDCs for mitigation and adaptation. So one of the challenges in front of us is to ask ourselves, what can we do together that's different and better? And our partnership would like to propose that we need to invest much more in climate leaders. And we don't want to just invest in climate leaders. We need to create factories in every country for people who are highly trained. Maybe they're working in government, maybe they're in academics, maybe they're in the private sector. But people need to be highly trained how to use carbon accounting, to attract carbon finance, and implement nature-based solutions, as well as mitigation and adaptation in other sectors. And before we hear from our wonderful colleagues in Indonesia, West Africa, and China, I thought it's also important to be a little bit honest about capacity building so far. One of the nice things about capacity building is everyone likes it. It feels good, right? It's like you can't be opposed to whales or children. Your capacity building is something that makes people feel good. The challenge is, as we move towards implementation, a lot of donors are starting to say, well, we've already done capacity building for 20 years. We've already done workshops, we've had webinars, we have good courses online, and we don't need to do any more training programs. Some of the research that's been done by Lisa Hanley, who used to be on the Carbon Institute Council and is now with the Secretariat, there is a massive shortage of qualified experts to even review the submissions from countries for NDCs and pledges. So we've built a fantastic architecture, and yet we don't even have the human capabilities to be able to implement the agreement and review the pledges and the inventories. So a lot of donors see this as yesteryear's problem. And honestly, a lot of times capacity building is not done very well. What we've tried to do, and I think you'll hear today from some of our speakers, is we've taken the long-term view. We don't think it's helpful to fly in and give a workshop or to just have a webinar, but it's really something that I hope you're going to hear over the next few speakers, is that we really try to build patient partnerships that can last for a long time and become country-owned and country-driven. This is our central model where we mentor faculty. We built the very first advanced carbon accounting program at the University of California, San Diego. We had 125 applicants for 25 countries, and that's why Germany, the government of Germany, funded us to be able to work in China and Indonesia for the past 4 years. You'll be hearing from Rizaldi and Gao about those experiences. We were also supported by the US State Department and the Forest Service, which Francois will talk about, to build a regional capacity hub in West Africa. And then, of course, as Noor said, we're launching, or sort of pre-launching, a network of networks with other regional partners in Africa, the Pacific, Central Africa, and Asia to scale up that model. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to one of my great friends and one of the lions of capacity building in Africa, Mr. Francois Hill. And just so you know, his name in French means smile. So his last name means smile, smile. So Francois, the floor is yours. Where's your clicker if you need to go with that?
Thank you, John. The meaning of my name is not a French name, but it's a Bantu name in the forest, the green forest of Central Africa. In Africa, in Central Africa, we've developed a national hub of excellence in terrestrial carbon accounting, TCA. And the program was taught in 3 countries. That is, starting with Cameroon, where the initial project was set up thanks to the funding of US Forest Service. And after that, the trained faculty, the Cameroonian faculty, went to the Republic of Congo, joined with some of the faculty staff of NSAF and the University of Mariengwabi to develop the same course and teach it in the Republic of Congo. And after that, we went to DRC with all the trained faculties, that is, the Cameroonian faculties, the Congolese faculty, and also some of the faculty in the DRC. We developed the 3rd course in Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The participants were mostly professionals from the ministries in charge of forest and environment, NGOs, even international NGOs attended the course. We had a focus on faculty staff, that is lecturers at different universities. In total, we had 2,748 hours of terrestrial carbon accounting training courses. And 28 faculty were trained in teaching, and also 88 professionals were trained. the lecturers, we lecturers at these different universities, we are using the TCA material to complement our courses, our day-to-day courses in our universities. And since 2016, at least 500 master degree students have been exposed to these carbon accounting courses. And some of them even are doing their research, PhD research in this subject matter. We see that there is a need to expand this training in all the 10 countries, because we are working here within the premise of COMIFAC. COMIFAC, which is the Commission on Forestry in Central Africa, and which has its entity, which is RIFEAC, which is the network of forestry and environment school in Central Africa. And we think that this training should be expanded in all the 22 members of this network within the 10 countries of Central Africa. I will introduce Professor Rizaldi to talk about the Indonesian experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Francois. So now, actually, I would like also to share the experience in Indonesia when we conduct the terrestrial carbon accounting. So when the first time we have met with John and we are talking about this kind of training, and then the same questions come up. What are the difference of our training with others? And then we have to make sure that actually the terrestrial carbon accounting that we are conducting is really fill the gaps and develop the capacity that also meet with the need of the country. So the first step of what we are doing, we do the kind of gap assessment. We look at and evaluate and assess all the type of training that has been done so far. And we've also visited a number of universities, checking the curriculum related to the course that we are offering under the TCA. And then we found out actually none of the course or training that has been done are actually starting from the upstream to the downstream. So in the TCA, so we really starting for the whole, from the upstream is we are also introduced about the policy context of the TCA and the technical methodology and also the communication. So these are the 6 components that we are delivering. Well, of course, again, when we implement and we develop the curriculum together, we do it in America, so we discuss and also we share what actually the curriculum that has been developed with the university and also other training that has been done many times in the country. And then finally we reshape and we adjust some of the curriculum. But again, when we implement this training, and then we also get a diverse of participants. With different background, we cannot really get all the participants have a very equal skill or basic understanding on the tool that we deliver. So what we are doing actually when we're trying to copy this one, so we at the beginning of the start of the training, so we group the participant, which within the group have different expertise and background. I think dealing with these kind of issues cannot work alone, and I think we have to work together. So the spirit actually doesn't have to master everything, but at least they know how they can communicate and share the knowledge and technique and capacity that has been developed by others. So that's the way we are doing in Indonesia. And we have, from the 2 batch, we involve about 44 professionals, the participant, and then it involved about 86 hours of the training, and 36% is lecture, and then 44% practical, and then 90% field work. But in doing the practical, we really bring the real case and also the problem that they have in the jurisdiction, because in the context of Indonesia, every jurisdiction also have a mandate to set up strategy for implementing the REDD in particular. So we really help them in making use of the tool and technique method that has been delivered to them on supporting the jurisdiction policy and strategy for addressing the issues. So now, because we would like to be sustainable, and I think have to be part of the curriculum at the university. So that's why we in Indonesia, this course is to be part of the one of the competency-based training is offered by our postgraduate. It's the first time competency-based training, which equal into 2 credit semesters. So everyone can really make use of the training or certificate that they have to be equivalent to 2 credit semester if they join into the master degree or PhD degree, so they don't have to take, they can exempt from 2 credit semester. So, but of course, the other thing that we would like to mention also here, the experience that we have, the alumni. The alumni is also very important because the different with the other training, we also set up kind of alumni network. So we are trying to create kind of communication that we can trying to keep the communication among the participants and share the experience and problems they have when they implement the skill in the decision. So by having this kind of alumni network can help also each other how they can address the problems that they might have when they do in their jurisdiction. So of course, this is one of the challenge how actually we can make the alumni are really working very well. And I think the others will also share and probably the thing that we would like also to get your input. Thank you very much, and I would like to hand over now to Gao to share the experience on China. Gao, it's your time.
Thank you, Professor and Radadi, for sharing experience in Africa and Indonesia. I'm from the Forest Common Accounting and Monitoring Center, the National Forestry and Grassland Administration of China. In the early time of 2017, when we kicked off this TCA program with Cabinet Institute, the first thing we have done was scope study. We looked through 12 universities, forest inventory academy, and research institutes. We got very detailed information about their courses and the training program related to TCA training. And we found that at that time, 3 years ago, we don't have a program cover the 6th category of TCA training, especially we showed off the policy and communication courses in China. So by interview the students and the participants, we do understand what they need and want us to help them to promote and build their capacity in carbon accounting. In order to make a better design of our teacher program, we held several in-country meetings with the partners from Carbon Institute to better discuss what's going to do in China to make this teacher program better. And we also asked several domestic stakeholders to join us to give us their idea and make us shape our teacher program. And finally, we designed 2 kinds of TCA curriculum in China. The one is online, and the second one is the face-to-face curriculum. We use the fundamental material TCA provides online for the participants could have a convenient way to get the materials useful for TCA training. And the face-to-face curriculum were tailored to meet the advanced need of carbon accounting. For example, these 2 famous scholars, the left scholar is the academician of the Academy of China Science, who gave policy, who gave science. And the left gentleman is a scholar, is my colleague. He is also the member of the Chinese delegation to UNCCC. he's now in the meeting room. Yes, join the negotiation. And this gentleman gave us the curriculum of policy. Another in online curriculum combined with the face-to-face curriculum lasted nearly 80 hours. And in 2018 and 2019, we had two TC programs in China. The participants came from 22 provinces of China. We total have 31 provinces in China mainland. And they came from over 60 agencies of China who engaged in forest inventory or carbon counting. These agencies are ranked very top level of Chinese China Academy who engage in forestry carbon accounting because we total have over 5,000 agencies in China. The participants, after they finish the online curriculum, and then they join the face-to-face curriculum, and they over 10 scholars gave lectures on the face-to-face curriculum. And after that, they went to the field. They learned how to use the latest development technology of the remote sensing or the field measure tools to measure forest. As a result, 16 faculty gave lectures on our face-to-face curriculum and covered a total over 6,000 hours. 103 people passed the online curriculum and the face-to-face curriculum. They passed the exam and the evaluation and got the certificate last. And in the future, I think we are going to do this TCA program in China, or we could use the curriculum developed by this program in our future training or other curriculum to make this curriculum sustainable use and development. Thank you. Let's hand over to Joanne.
Thank you so much, Francois, Rizaldi, and Gao. So just to maybe emphasize a few final points before I turn it over to our next panel. You'll notice the numbers were very heavy on faculty. The investment was not necessarily in just training people, but we've co-built these factories, and in all the 3 case studies, they've accredited these programs to their own national or regional circumstances so that these programs will keep running. In China, it was accredited globally, but it was also accredited through the Chinese Engineering Forestry Association. Rizaldi mentioned that it was accredited globally, but it also now is part of an accreditation process within the graduate school. So this is a real key innovation, we like to think, that the capacity building that we do is going to last for a very long time. So with that, you've heard a little bit about what we've done. I'd like to invite Noor back to moderate a panel. And if we could have representatives from Rieckhoff TC, from the University of the South Pacific, and I believe Peter Iverson is here, and Kyoto from the IPCC, and Noor will run the panel. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. Francois is going to stay up here as well too, because he represents a further regional African network. So Noor, the floor is back to you. So you'll stay up here, Francois. I think we can just land on that. Or we'll just leave that one. So you can come on up.
Yep. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we are entering the last session before discussion. This is about the future how we will expand the partnership through a network of networks. We have distinguished speakers here from partners. First, Francia Gulhill, he's stay with us now, representing Rieckhoff. And then we have Jenna Jadin from Rieckhoff TC, and we have Professor Elizabeth Holland from University of the South Pacific. We also invite the institution that we all here know already. As this partnership work is very relevant to the work of these two institutions, we also invite UNFCCC Secretariat, represented by my colleague Peter Iverson, and from IPCC, Mr. Kyoto Tanabe. We welcome Ms. Megan Battalion from Global Good that will share her thoughts how what role that philanthropy could play in our effort. So without further ado, for the next 30 minutes, we will share the 30 minutes among the six panelists. So we'll start from Francois, and then Jenna and Professor Elizabeth. Then the next Peter, Mr. Nabe, and Megan. So please, Francois.
Okay, thank you very much, No. I'm speaking on behalf of Professor Claude Kachaka, who is the coordinator of RIFEAC. Again, RIFEAC is the Central Africa network of schools, forestry and environment within COMIFAC, which is the Central Africa Commission on Forestry. 10 countries, 22 universities and schools. RIFEAC is in need of developing curricula in terrestrial carbon accounting. We know the forest ecosystem in Central Africa is the second one after the Amazon. So it's really important to build the capacity, to build a pool of expertise in terms of measuring carbon and reporting in the framework of the Paris Agreement. The curriculum that we need to build for us will support master degree training, but also in terms of short course delivered to professionals who are already working in the area. So, and also we'll need to do mentoring of these people, especially the trainers who will have been trained. So that's what I can say for the moment. Thank you.
Good morning, selamat pagi. So I am, my name is Jenna, and I work with an organization with an odd acronym, which means it gets called a few different things. It's been called Rieckhoff TC earlier. We tend to call ourselves Rieckhoff, but we acknowledge all the pronunciations. So Rieckhoff stands for the Regional Community Forestry Training Center, also known as the Center for People in Forests. We are an organization that has existed for about 32 years now. We were originally founded in 1987 by FAO as a regional training center. We are based in Bangkok, or I should say our regional office is in Bangkok, and then we have offices in 7 other countries around Southeast Asia, so the 5 Mekong countries, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Myanmar. And then we also have offices in Nepal and Indonesia. We've done work throughout most of Southeast Asia and China. We've also worked in the Philippines, Malaysia, East Timor, China, a little bit in India, but we have the 7 offices for now. We function on 4 strategic goals that we focus on. So we focus on climate change adaptation at a landscape level. We focus on governance and conflict mitigation. One of our strategic goals is about small, medium forest enterprises, business development. And our final goal is about public action, gender inclusion. It's kind of everything else thrown in. We have sectoral experts in our regional office, and then we also have training experts in our regional office, and the same in all of our country offices. Over the years, since 1987, we have now trained over 60,000 people throughout Southeast Asia. We just passed that number. 30% of those were women. It should be 50%, but that number has been going up over the years, and right now we're implementing a program called WAVES, which is a gender transformative program that focuses specifically on female leadership in the forestry sector. We're based on Kasetsart University in the northern central part of Bangkok. So we work very closely with the university. We also work very closely with other universities throughout the Southeast Asian region, especially a few in Thailand, but all throughout Southeast Asia. So as John mentioned earlier, training is starting to seem like yesterday's thing. And we at Rieckhoff have realized that, so we have morphed into more than a training center, but it is still our heart and soul, and we are not going to give it up, and we have seen the difference in our programs. I've only been with Rieckhoff a short amount of time, and I went out in the field and seen some amazing transformations in some of the communities we work with. So as to our training, we use lots of approaches. Typically, it is hands-on, in-person training that's mixed with a field component. So people might come to our classroom, or we might go to their village or their community and give 3 days of online 3 days of in-person interactive training, and then maybe 2 days out in the field, visiting field sites. We also support study tours if and when requested. And we are doing e-learning increasingly. We have some existing modules on climate change, low-emission land use, a few other ones, and we are revamping our e-learning program as we speak and planning to roll out 2 new courses in the next 6 months. One of them is just a basic community forestry 101, and the other one is in partnership with the FAO again, who are having us do a voluntary tenure guidelines e-learning course. In terms of who we work with or how we function, we have been very lucky to have an endowment from the Swiss and the Swedish that has been ongoing for many years. But then we also work on an ad hoc basis with many other donors, implement specific projects for them, whether they be big or small. We work a lot with FAO, we work a lot directly with governments, and we also do have a small endowment with Thai government. So yeah, we, as I said, e-learning, we are increasingly using that, and we are starting to look towards apps as well, as everyone should be doing. We realize a lot of the people we work with cannot come to Bangkok, cannot come to Luang Prabang or Vientiane, and they cannot come to get the trainings they need. But all of Southeast Asia is incredibly well connected. Cell phone penetration is quite high. So we're also expecting that within the next year, we're going to be doing a lot more blended courses where we can give training to remote communities and then have them follow up afterwards through our app, through our websites. So yes, we also do a lot of assessments of capacity. So we recently just finished a social forestry education assessment, which we did throughout Southeast Asia. This was done with the support of our ASEAN-Swiss Partnership on Social Forestry and Climate Change project, which has been a long-running project with the center. And we sent out a huge survey to universities, university graduates, and employers about the state of social forestry education. And we are prepared to do that with any other topic as well, now that we have the basic framework laid out. We are really excited to be part of the Carbon Institute partnership. This is absolutely essential. Not only to what John said earlier, that we don't have people that are necessarily trained to deal with issues related to the UNFCCC or IPCC, but my own personal experience, and I'm sure many of you have felt this as well, in the countries that I've worked in Asia, and that's been the limit of my work, it is so hard sometimes to find national staff who have that experience in climate change issues. There are many talented staff who are foresters, who are agronomists, who are basic biologists, but when you start getting into sort of the more nuances of climate change and conservation and these more complicated issues, in certain places it can be very, very hard to find staff to work on those projects. And so I think this is actually one step towards building that as well. Anyway, that is all I have to say. And yeah, we're very excited to be part of it, and I cede the floor to my next colleague.
Thank you very much. It's my honor to be here today. I'm Elizabeth Holland. I'm the Norway Pacific Chair in Oceans and Climate Change at the University of the South Pacific. And I work very closely with the School of Marine Studies as well as the Pacific Center for the Environment and Sustainable Development. Within the Pacific Center for the Environment and Sustainable Development, we have a climate change program that's graduated over 230 Pacific Islanders with postgraduate degrees, masters, and PhDs in climate change. So we are a regional university, one of 3 in the world. Our university has 12 member countries: the Pacific Small Island Developing States, or the Pacific Big Ocean States, as we prefer to call ourselves. The Cook Islands, Fiji, Kiribati, Nauru, Niue, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, Tokelau, Tuvalu, and Vanuatu are all our member countries. And for those of you that are acquainted with the UNFCCC processes, I hope you recognize many of the UNFCCC leaders and the leadership leading to the Paris Agreement that the Pacific stood for. Our students participate in UNFCCC processes. We have 6 students here. I just get to be the head of delegation while they do some of the hard work. And so our students have graduated from our climate change program and have gone on to be permanent representatives for their nations in New York. Our current alumni is Olai Uludong, and she's spearheading the UN Oceans R Us meeting for Palau. So we have a very distinguished alumni from our program, and we would like to build on our track record of delivering distance learning. Our curriculum for postgraduate studies is largely by remote learning. So we've got, it's all online, and we provide online support supported by workshops. And I think our track record speaks for itself, but what we'd like to do is found, in partnership with the Carbon Institute, a program called Pacific Islands and Ocean Stewardship. Because as Big Ocean State members, as responsible for a vast area of the Pacific Ocean, we need to be bringing climate change together with forestry practices, together with integrated marine spatial planning, together with urban planning, and have all of that be part and parcel. But we need to know how much carbon we have. And that's why this collaborative laboratory is so important, because we lack the research capacity to determine that. If you look at our collective national, not our NDCs, but our national communications, we are already part of the solution, just from our forests alone. And those were inadequately, we are not keeping track of our forest resources adequately, nor are we keeping track of how much carbon is stored in our mangroves, coral reefs, seagrasses. All of these things, we need to be able to have the numbers to be able to manage our heart and soul of the Pacific. So, Banakavakalevu, Komotata, and thank you very much to the Carbon Institute for making our dream possible.
Good morning, and first, thank you very much for inviting me to be here today. Has been very interesting so far. So I'm Peter Iversen from the Climate Change Secretariat. I'm from the division that deals with transparency, where I'm leading the team that deals with land use. So our work is related to REDD+, agriculture, LULUCF, and everything sort of related to the land use. And a very significant part of our work is actually to help. We receive the REDD+ reference levels from countries. We help to manage, so there will be a technical assessment of these reference levels, and for this we need experts. Otherwise this can basically not function. Also, we are receiving results from parties. After first they have the reference level, then results. Also here we need experts, LULUCF experts, to help us do this work. It is not done by the Secretariat. We are just facilitating the work, organizing. Everything is according to the decisions, but it is experts from the countries that are coming to do the work. So therefore I'm very happy to hear this, that all these people are being trained. Because the truth is, we are already today always sort of, you could say, struggling sometimes to find the experts to do this work. Because we are not only in the Secretariat dealing with REDD+, there's also biannual update reports, there's also greenhouse gas inventories, there's also national communications and biannual reports. So there's a lot of different reports that all need some kind of review or technical assessment. And in fact, before I forget, I'll also use the opportunity. Tomorrow in the evening, we are actually presenting some of the results on the MRV on REDD+ and REDD+ results, I think in side event room 5, so you're most welcome to come there also. If we look a little bit to the future, and maybe you already heard that I think there was side events about this enhanced transparency framework that now has been created for the Paris Agreement. Still, we are really sort of struggling still how to find out how we can manage this, because what we see is we need a very significant increase in the number of experts to do this when all countries will start to report the biannual transparency report by 2024 at the latest. And okay, now we only have 2019, but it's not that far when you think about training and so on. And we are trying to get more and more people involved in our process, so we have this big pool. Right now what we have what we call the roster of experts. This is where experts can be listed, and then they can participate in our process. To be listed there, they need to go through the focal point of the country and be nominated. And then we also provide some training courses for the specific, you could say, decisions that have been taken in the UNFCCC context. So this is where, but I mean, basically, of course, if experts have already worked in their countries on these things, it is a huge advantage. And I will also say for the experts themselves, and there's also benefits of participating in this, because you come there as an expert. Maybe you're an expert in your own country, you know something, but then you will have to do a technical assessment of some information from another country. Maybe they do it slightly different, or maybe quite a bit different, and they have different forest ecosystems, or they different approaches. So there's actually something to learn. So when you are done with the technical assessment, you do the report, you can go home and you can bring new knowledge, because now you have learned a little bit about how they do it in this country instead, and so that's, and also of course there's the other personal benefits. A few years ago I had the benefit to be on the team with Professor Rieckhoff, and so there's also opportunity to build friendships, and that's, I would say, also of course a very nice thing of participating in this. I think I will end in this, but just from the Secretariat side, yeah, we are very happy to see this kind of initiatives that will help boost the number of experts that can also help us you could say, help the countries in implementing the enhanced transparency framework. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kyoto Tanabe, a co-chair of the IPCC Task Force on National Greenhouse Gas Inventories, TFI. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this event for inviting me to this podium. And also, I would like to congratulate them on the successful pre-launch of the Collaborative Capacity Lab. This is fantastic, I think. As you know, national greenhouse gas inventories are essential tools for countries to transparently report their anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions and removals. But not only that, the national greenhouse gas inventories are essential tool to provide a basis for mutual trust and confidence among countries, as that is really necessary for successful implementation of the UNFCCC Kyoto Protocol and the Paris Agreement. And also they are very useful in developing policies and measures, and also in monitoring the progress of those policies and measures. The IPCC has been working for more than 20 years to help countries producing high quality national greenhouse gas inventories by developing and disseminating methodological guidance and also various supporting tools. For example, the 2006 IPCC guidelines, as well as the recently published 2019 refinement, those latest guidelines provide the best and enriched guidance on estimation of greenhouse gas emissions and removals as compared to the older guidelines, such as 1996 guidelines. So for over the past 20 years, methodological guidance by the IPCC have been very much updated and enriched. And I do believe these latest guidelines provided by the IPCC will help countries, all countries, improve the quality of their national greenhouse gas inventories. But here, there is a dilemma. The more the guidelines are enriched, probably the more national greenhouse gas inventories of the countries can be improved. But in order to make it happen, the more you have to learn about the guidelines. Therefore, absolutely we need sort of capacity building programs or training programs for many countries, particularly developing countries, to learn more about the latest guidelines. The IPCC itself does not have a mandate to implement capacity building itself, but the technical support unit, TSU of TFI, has been cooperating a lot with other international organizations and programs on capacity buildings. But the TSU, that team is a very small team, and they have a lot of other work. So it is absolutely impossible to meet the high demands for capacity building from so many countries. Therefore, we really think that a very good pool of experts who are familiar with IPCC methodology, who can serve as trainers for capacity building programs. That's why I really appreciate this, the newly established CCL. I have been also serving as a member of a UNFCCC consultative group of experts, and I myself have been participating in a lot of capacity building workshops. And there are many lessons learned and issues identified. But one of them is that it is absolutely necessary to train the trainers. Otherwise, capacity building program cannot be enhanced and extended. So this is very important. Training trainers is very important, and I'm really happy to see that is being implemented by this lab. Having said that, I would like to thank the organizer and you all again for hearing my statement. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I would love to be able to say that we are done with capacity building. That would mean that we can all just pack up, go off, get some paella, have some sangria, we're done with our jobs. It's been fantastic knowing all of you. But that's just not the case. I come from a position of working with philanthropy. And every different family office, funder, donor has a different way of approaching their strategy around what they're going to do in relation to funding climate change related activities, adaptation, mitigation. And the reality is capacity building is one of those things that we are so far from being done with. We have a lot of different activities, right, as far as that strategy building goes. There are some people that are really, really focused on just trying to understand what that next piece of education might be and how we can fund that. There are people that are really focused in on the technology gaps in the invention, like my organization, and where we can actually do something that would create impact and adaptation and or mitigation. But no matter what it is, we need the people in this expanding population and this increasing urbanization who can manage those programs, who can build that technology, who can deploy that technology and continue to use it for generations, because we are not done. We have a long way to go. And we have a really short time in order to be able to do it. There are different ways to approach how you actually fund capacity building, and this is where the networks come in. But I am a firm believer that the students of today are the people that are going to be saving all of us from ourselves in the future. And that's where the funding needs to go, is building the capacity of young people to be able to save us from ourselves. Taking baselines was something that was mentioned earlier as well. And that, again, is something that gets overlooked all the time. If we don't know what it is that we're actually, the problems that we're trying to solve, if we have no data, if we have no quantification of what it is we're looking at, we're not going to be able to measure where we've gone. And there are so many countries that do not have baselines of any sort for the oceans, for their inland waterways, for their forests, for their grasslands, for their animals, for their carbon emissions, for everything. So we do need to have capacity building for that as well. I would say the one thing that I want to really impress upon everybody here is thinking in the long array. What is our 20-year plan? What is our 30-year plan? What is our 50-year plan? Which is absolutely something we need to think about. But we have to take action now. We've been sitting in these rooms, we've been negotiating, we've been having these conversations. It's time to take that next step. It's time to put the money into process and actually do something with all of this funding we've been talking about committing forever. And if every single person in this room can commit to taking that one step, to doing your part, to getting money on the ground to do these programs, then we've already made a change.
Thank you for wonderful sharing of what your institution have been doing. And one more thing is very important for this initiative is your positive support to us. And now I think we come to the moderated discussion. We would like to invite Margaret Leinen from Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And Margaret, if you could also take questions, so all audience could ask the question to the 6 panelists and the earlier 3 panelists. Thank you. You could-
Thank you, Noor. So as we've walked around the COP, how many times have we seen huge signs about nature-based solutions as though they're obvious and as though it's just a question of committing to do them? And of course, behind that is the hard work of the enhanced transparency that's necessary, the baselines that the speakers have talked about, and behind that, the training to be able to determine those baselines, to report on them in the technical framework that's required. The second thing that I want to call attention to before we take questions is this is the Blue COP. And in all of our Blue COP meetings, we've also been hearing about nature-based blue solutions. And the same is true there. And yet, we're even further behind in establishing how to do that. For some blue solutions, like mangroves, there are standards, but the protocols and procedures aren't well worked out. But some of the other blue solutions that have been mentioned, for example, Elizabeth mentioned seagrasses, we don't even have standards for it. So we have a lot of work to do on this side, and one of the things that we want to do is to ensure that our training starts anticipating that we have more than 70 nations who in their NDCs have indicated that they want to add blue solutions. And so we're going to have training programs for that as well. So the Carbon Institute and partners will also be moving into the area of training for blue solutions. So I'll stop there and have questions. And if you don't have questions, I have some that I'll ask the group. Yes.
Nick Reynard from Imperial College London. Thank you for your talks and all the important work you're doing. I came in here originally wanting to know, is there enough experts out there to keep track of the inventories? I get the impression the answer is no, but following on from that, do you think that the expansion of your work and the number of experts you're training is expanding that at a rate that's fast enough? And how do you see that changing in the future? Thank you.
So let's turn to a couple of the groups that have worked in this. I'm going to first turn to our expert on training in Southeast Asia, then Africa, Indonesia. Just come up.
Are there enough well-trained people? No, absolutely not. What is the solution to that? From my organization, the solution to that is more funding and more time and more people to continue doing our training of the trainers. I mentioned we've trained 60,000 people in 32 years. That's not too bad, but it's not enough. There are something like 1.5 million people in Southeast Asia that live in community forests, and if we've reached 60,000 of them, that is really a drop in the bucket. We need more funding. We need more people to do it. We need more time. And I didn't mention earlier, we do focus, so the people that we reach with my organization, we reach across the gamut. We try to focus on training of the trainers, but we also do direct trainings with the media, with CSOs. For example, we just had a training in our regional office in Bangkok a few weeks ago, when we brought in all kinds of local CSOs and taught them how to develop proposals and how to apply for grants. And we're hoping that now they will be able to start getting their own small pots of funds without our support. It was a pretty intensive week-long training. But we also work directly with villagers, with politicians, with policymakers, with university professors. So, yeah, and more funding and more training of the trainers, high quality, and follow up with them, make sure they're in networks where they can support each other.
So thank you. I think that's the main challenge that we are having, but I'm sure that we can accelerate that. So one, of course, the involvement of the university are very important. And, but the problem is now, through the carbon accounting, there should be some standard because we are dealing with the comparability, consistency, and so on. So that's why when we go to the university and develop this curriculum, there should be some kind of standard that need to be developed for that. And I think that the presence of such kind of this institute can also ensure how actually the training material is being developed, actually following the change of the standard and as well as the progress on the negotiation. We know that the change of the change in methodology on our law is very rapid. Now, about blue carbon, we haven't have this kind of standard yet. So there are many challenges that we are having. So that's why university are very important. Of course, we are going through the university, we can integrate it into a curriculum. And then at the same time, we also develop kind of training for the capacity building. So two should be hand in hand. So university, if being integrated into the university curriculum, and of course, we have to make sure that the course is being offered is also meet this kind of standard, the international one, because as Peter said, when we are inviting the UNFCCC to do the review, so we have to follow a certain standard. These are the things that why actually the issue of carbon accounting is not easy. But I'm very confident that this demand can be met very, very rapidly when this lab can really help in terms of sharing the knowledge that has been developed, creating kind of the standard, and how more university, so that the network that we have can really engage in. So I think that I would like to say, but of course money is important, but I think we have philanthropy can support also this kind of initiative. Thank you.
Yes, it's the same answer. We need funds, developing curricula in our current programs. Of course, standardization is very important because we have to follow the guidelines. And also, I think research, because we have a lot of unanswered questions in terms of our ecosystems. So developing research in, to better understand the functioning of our ecosystem is very important. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the two critical points you heard were that it's not just a question of training trainers, it's a question of curriculum so that the curriculum goes on. And second, developing the capacity for the people that you have trained to apply for funding themselves from other sources. Other questions? I have one for the group. There was, yes, please.
My name is Marie-Louise Havana from the African Forest Forum. I really appreciate all the initiatives there in terms of capacity building and also the idea of building, strengthening this capacity through training of trainers and so on. But we said and we realized that we have been training for more than 20 years, as we said, and we are still lacking capacities. So I'm trying to say what can be that innovative way of going as faster as we are thinking, but also make sure that we are really making the impact there. And I also realized, I really appreciate that in Africa we are focusing on the Central Africa, which is actually one of the lung of the planet. That is very good, and this is where my country is. But I'm actually working for an organization which is African-wide, and I'm looking for how can we really also be partners so that we can also make that impact in Central Africa, but also in other part of Africa. Thank you.
Francois, you want to comment on how we can extend beyond Central Africa?
What Marie-Louise has said is true, but I think what we really need here is, partnership, because if we were able to develop something in Central Africa, and I said it previously, it was thanks to U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. State Department, which provided some funds to the Carbon Institute. So we are really in demand of to other partners to come in, join us, so that we can expand the projects through all other regions of Africa. That's what I can say. Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Ali Mashaik, also from Imperial College. If we just dream for a second and imagine that each of the speakers would have as much money as they wanted, then what would be the first thing that they would invest in, or what would be the one point that they would invest the most amount of money in? If we can put that question to the speakers, and also want to put the question to the Carbon Institute, since it's the hub that all these efforts come together. How would you prioritize your funding if you had a lot of money into different categories that have been discussed here today? Thank you.
I love thinking about all the money in the world. That is a dream I have every single night, Ali. So I think it goes to the question whether we can scale up fast enough. You can talk to Kyoto and Peter, and we can ask ourselves, are we going fast enough to get the experts so the Paris Agreement can succeed? Of course, countries have to do the accounting, not for accounting's sake, but to lower emissions. But we still need to keep the wheels going so that the expert review and the inventories can be processed and evaluated, and also so countries can own that so they can reduce emissions. So if I had all the money in the world, first of all, I would invite you to a party. And we are having a party Friday night. Tomorrow night, you're all invited. But we would invest in people like Jenna, in Gao, in Francois, in Beth. We would make them not one person, not 10 people, but we need 1,000 Francois. We need 1,000 Beths. We need 10,000 Rizaldis. So we do have a model. We have curriculums. We just need to clone all the people. I'll stop there.
Great. I've just been told that I need to close things up because the time is up. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank all of the speakers and the partners, and also all of you who asked questions. Thanks very much. And don't forget John's Blue-Green Soiree tomorrow night.
Okay, thank you very much for all speakers and the moderator. Before we close the session, there will be the token of appreciation given by Mr. Nur Adi Wardoyo, the representative from Ministry of Environment and Forestry. I would like to invite all speakers to go to the center of the stage. Okay, after this, please join for the photo session. Mr. Nur Adi Wardoyo with all the speakers and the moderator. Please give a round of applause to all of the speakers and the moderator. Thank you very much. There was a very fruitful session. What is that? Okay, so the committee of the session has a handout. So everyone who would like to take it, please come forward to take the handout. Next session will begin on 12 until 13:22 with the title of Unfolding the First NDC in 2020 Action and Beyond. Therefore, we would like to invite you again to our session. After this, that will begin shortly in 10 minutes.